So in this video I am going to be taking a plain round tray and we're going to be upcycling it with some gold leaf and some herringbone detail on the base. I will start off by saying that this has been a bit of a disaster project. Nothing's gone to plan, but I will show you obviously the process and how things went and stuff. It definitely hasn't been straightforward. Sometimes these DIYs aren't that straightforward. So this is what we are going to be doing. So we've got herringbone detailing and we've got gold leaf on the edge. And I will insert a picture of what it looked like before so you can see how it was before. It was quite plain and a bit boring. So we needed to elevate it and make it look fabulous. So let's get into it.
So first thing you're going to need is some lollipop sticks. I've got these ones from Amazon. I'll link them down below along with everything else. You'll also need a mitre saw if you have one, but if not, don't worry. You can also use a Stanley knife and some scissors, which I did actually use on a few occasions, as well as the mitre saw. Next thing you're going to need is some sandpaper. So I've got 180 grit sandpaper. I did actually end up going to use my orbital sander as well. And then you'll also need some wood glue. Next thing you need is some stain for the wooden sticks. If you want to obviously stain it, you could leave them as they are if you want. I did use some wood filler. This one might be optional for you. I will talk about this later, but yeah, I did use wood filler. And then the next bit you need is obviously some gold leaf, and then you'll need some metal leaf C's, along with a soft brush to brush off the excess leaf, and then also a brush to apply the glue. And then the next bit you need is some resin. So I've got this resin here. I did actually use two different types of resin, as you will see later in the video. The resin part didn't go particularly well, along with a few other things. So you also want some measuring cups so you can make sure you get it accurately measured. And then you'll probably want some just plastic cups just to mix it all in, and some wooden lollipop sticks. And then also you'll want a heat gun as well. And then the last few things that you'll want is some disposable gloves. You'll want to wear these when you're doing the epoxy resin and mixing that and pouring it. And then also you'll want some nail polish remover and some kitchen roll. This is very helpful to get the resin off when you need to and clean up all the pot. So we're going to start off with the tray. So first of all, we're going to give the tray a light sand. This is just so that the wood glue has got something to key to when we stick the lollipop sticks down. And then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to cut the lollipop sticks into your chosen length. I basically just cut mine in half and just obviously cut the curved ends off. And then I wanted to find the middle of the tray, just so I knew where my starting point was with laying the herringbone detail. And I literally just simply placed a bit of wood glue on there and then just kept sticking them in the herringbone style, as you see here. And I just kept going until I got to the edges. At the edges, obviously that got a little bit more difficult because I needed to cut them down to make them fit. So once I got all the full ones down, it was time to cut down all the edge ones, and I literally just went round and just sort of measured each one individually. While I was doing this, I didn't actually stick them down, I just placed them where they needed to be and then just stuck them down with wood glue. Okay, and then this was the wood filler bit. Now, up to you if you do this. I probably wouldn't do it again, but you can do it if you want. It just fills up any gaps in between the wood. I don't know if it was because the wood filler was probably a little bit dry as well, didn't help. The first time I used it, I put a reasonable coat on there, which then meant I had to leave it to dry overnight, and then I had to use my orbital sander to sand it all back. So it was quite time consuming doing this. Once I'd done this as well, there were still bits where the wood filler hadn't gone. So I then went in again with wood filler. Again, probably wouldn't recommend doing this either, as it caused me problems later down the line. So yeah, I basically filled in the bits that were missing and then I wiped it over with a wet cloth And because obviously the lollipop sticks are only thin wood, the water then got into the sticks and it kind of made some of them curve up, which then meant I had to remove them and put new ones in. So yeah, this was disaster one basically. So after the second attempt to do the wood filler, I then went in with some sandpaper and just gave it a light sand just to make sure I had a nice smooth surface for the stain. Once we'd done all the wood filler and stuff, I stained it up with the beeswax stain that I had. So I just went over the whole tray and applied that. And then the next bit was the gold leaf on the edging of the tray. First thing we're going to do is apply the metal leaf C's. So I think most of them you have to leave these for about 10-15 minutes before you can actually apply the leaf. So I just went round and obviously put the glue on all the way around and then allowed that to dry for the allotted time, and then I could apply the gold leaf. With the gold leaf you do have to be, it's very delicate, but to be fair, as long as obviously all areas are covered, it doesn't really matter if it breaks up and stuff. You can always use those for little areas that have been missed. And then once all the gold leaf has been applied, I then brushed it off with a soft brush, making sure that I had a nice smooth finish. Next thing I did was the epoxy resin. So we followed the instructions on how to mix it. Initially I didn't make enough. I think I made about 3 batches, which was fine because I did them fairly quickly. However, me being the perfectionist that I am, I wanted it to be super smooth and look super glossy once it was all done, which meant that I kept moving the resin around and kept messing around with it. And yeah, it didn't turn out too well. So don't do this. Once you pour it, obviously spread it around and make sure you've got a fairly even coat. And yeah, as I'll show you later, you can actually do another second coat if it's not perfect, so don't keep messing with it. So this was the second attempt with the resin after I'd peeled it all off. Unfortunately I didn't record it because I was quite annoyed at that point, understandably. So, and this time I tried to ensure that I made a big enough batch to cover the whole lot. So this project is turning into a bit of a disaster. I had to remove the first coat of the epoxy resin, and now I've poured the second coat and it's gone pretty well. However, there are a few imperfections on it, so I need to sand it back. So apparently you can do this with resin, and then I can put another coat on it and hopefully that will get rid of all the imperfections that are on there. If you have a look, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. There's here, the light catches it just there. There's a bit of a dip in the resin. I think it's just really in that area there. But yeah, if we sand it all down and then I can pour a second coat, I probably don't need to do a thicker coat this time. So for the second coat we're just sanding it down so the second coat has something to key to, and then I just wiped it all down just to make sure all the dust was removed, and then mixed up the resin and poured that over the whole tray, and then just spreaded it about the tray to make sure that there was even coverage. And then I used the heat gun to get rid of any air bubbles, and then I left it overnight to let it dry and cure, and here it is. So here is the finished article. So as you can see probably in the light, it is not particularly smooth in places, so I'm debating whether to sand it back using wet and dry sandpaper and then using a polish on top to get it nice and smooth. Obviously I haven't decided whether I'm going to do that yet. If I do it, I will share it over on my Instagram page. My Instagram handle is the same as my YouTube channel, Guinevere, so if you want to follow me over there, then you can see obviously how that turns out. But overall, I'm fairly pleased with the project, although it's been a bit of a flipping nightmare. I hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, I'll see you again soon.